This is going to be as brief as I can make it, guys, but I want to address two comments that have invited their own share of drama. Not because I like indulging in drama, but because there's only so much you can accomplish in text, and these chains of comments and replies have gotten unwieldy. First, in chronological order, I unsubscribed to CultOfDusty, and I let him know in comments that I disagreed with his decision to make a public spectacle of glorifying drug use. Specifically, he smoked DMT, dimethyltryptamine, a hallucinogenic drug, on camera while describing how cool it felt, how it was totally safe, and how it made him a better person, more in touch with his spirituality. He told everyone watching they should try it once because, YOLO. The comment chain below mine is in the hundreds, mostly along the lines of, "Don't let the door hit you on the way out, you're such a prude, he isn't hurting anyone," to which I will reply that there is a line between talking about your habits and glorifying them. Dusty didn't just want to talk about his need to use drugs to be an interesting person. He wanted to make a show of it, a point about how edgy he is. It's recently come out that CultOfDusty made comments in line with that of a Holocaust denialist on his Facebook page. I can't be sure this wasn't just a ploy on his part to up his controversial appeal, but I'm glad I'm unsubscribed now. The only thing we had in common is a lack of belief in a deity, and that's not enough to keep me interested in his kind of content. Here's my line in the sand, folks. If you're going to be a negative influence on young people in our community, if you're pushing drugs or crime or violence, I'm not interested in what you have to say about it, and I don't want to associate with you. The same is true of cigarettes and alcohol, cocaine, meth and heroin, cough syrup and cannabis. If you want to talk about it, make sure you present the whole picture, negative too, and ask yourself if you want a 10-year-old to watch your video, because I promise they are. Now, I'm not talking about getting anyone locked up, but I don't want to be a party to that kind of thing. Second, I commented on Thunderfoot's most recent video in his campaign against everything feminist. I respect Thunderfoot, I like Thunderfoot, and I even agree with him on parts of this video series. But sometimes I think he's straight over the line from attacking wacky feminist ideas to attacking legitimate research and activism. That motivates me to challenge him as a colleague to reflect on his content. It is simply a fact that social forces act on our image of self. This is not a matter of being strong or weak. At a young age, both boys and girls are being shaped by media messages about who and what they can become. Sometimes this is direct in that the media acts on them directly, but sometimes it's also indirect by acting on their friends, families, and peers, who then treat them according to stereotypes of the group to which they belong. Who can doubt that media portrayals of blacks as criminals and thugs have an effect on the identity of a young black person? Who can doubt that growing up with pink easy bake ovens and Barbie dolls subtly create a gender identity? There's a well-known phenomenon called stereotype threat. When people are tested for a particular ability without any pre-test influencing, then the same group is tested after discussion of stereotypes about their group. The test results are skewed in favor of confirming the stereotype. Psychologists attribute this to an unconscious, self-fulfilling prophecy mechanism. If you constantly tell girls that they aren't good at math, they won't try as hard, or will be more stressed out when presented with math problems, because their expectation is failure. This is why I think messages about comparisons have to be very carefully stated. Whites are smarter than blacks is a stereotype message, and it's going to have the net effect of discouraging academic achievement in young black people. Given the distribution of ability in a population, that means exceptional black students who are in fact capable of becoming professors, researchers, and engineers no longer push themselves to their full potential. I think the world is a worse off place for this kind of psychosocial manipulation. Are women physically different than men? Of course they are. They have different chromosomes, produce different levels of various hormones. The truly exceptional athletes, say the top 1% in both genders, are not equal. I don't think there's any reason to pretend otherwise. There is, however, a gap between top male athletes tend to outperform top female athletes in most categories, and Men are better than women at sports. The latter is too broad to meet basic rigor, and it runs afoul of stereotype generalization, that is, treating people as an aggregate member of a group. Within each group, there are exceptional or simply above average individuals. Here are two different ability distributions, one suggested by the first statement and the other by the second. The right-shifting attribute at one end of the graph is more right-tailed, but overlaps more completely below that level. Couch potatoes, regardless of gender, have very little ability to differentiate. The gap between the right-tailed exceptional athletes and the middle to below average athlete is much larger than the gap between the average male and female athletes. The second graph reflects how I think most people interpret Thunderfoot's statement, as two distributions with little overlap. This is my concern, and I think the central message of the Throw Like a Girl campaign. We're pigeonholing girls as poor athletes in the aggregate, when in fact athleticism in the real world is as much about behavior as it is about hormone response. It's more about actions than potentials. That's the mistake I see in Thunderfoot's interpretation on this issue. He's implying that a statistically average value sets limits on individual performance, when that's simply not the case for the vast majority of people. There's a lovely essay by Stephen Jay Gould called "The Median is Not the Message" that details this same idea in relation to cancer patient survival rates. I did a reading of it, if you want to check it out. Gould was told his median survival was 8 months. Like any scientist, he reacted as a human first and as a researcher second. He first felt a sense of despair and grief, knowing that he would be dead in less than a year. Secondly, though, he looked at the tailing on the distribution and realized that 8 months median survival didn't tell the whole story. In fact, Gould lived 20 years past his initial diagnosis, and for all we know, his positive attitude and attention to his medical care is what made him an outlier. I would propose the same fact stands for girls. If they receive encouragement instead of limitation, that changes the tailing on the distribution. That seems to me a legitimate use of activism. Exceptional ability exists in both men and women, but if we let the median dominate the discussion, those exceptional people from one group are discouraged from participating. If I could pick a theme in the comments left in response to mine, it would be black and white thinking. There's no room for subtlety, nuance, and complexity in YouTube comments. We resort to the same tribal mentality that has driven human culture since the beginning. My tribe, my champion is right. Your tribe, your champion is wrong. We reduce politics and economics and sociology to the same type of discussion as my sports team kicks your sports team's butts. I think that's a shame, because I think the discussion about modern feminism is one worth having. But radical feminism has given rise to radical anti-feminism, and those two groups are the only ones we focus on. The reactionaries dominate the discussion, so there's no room to ask, what approach is best to foster a positive, supportive message for all kids, regardless of race, gender, income, or disability? I'll offer my own opinion on that question. I think the best thing we can do is to focus on the positive examples of individuals who put in the time and effort to achieve their full potential, whatever that may be. Many of these campaigns, even though they're based on real research, focus on the negative behaviors and social factors. Ban Bossy, for example, strikes me as the wrong approach because while I agree with the end goal, encouraging leadership in young girls, the means seem to be incompatible. It could be that Throw Like a Girl is likewise taking the wrong approach. I would have preferred they coupled the idea of Throw Like a Girl with images of college-level intramural fast-pitch softball pitchers. I'm not on YouTube to make friends. I don't monetize my videos. I spend my days around scientists, every one of whom knows more about their specialty than I do. My ego isn't bound up in having people agree with me. The reason I'm here is for the discussion, which I think is worth having, and particularly with people who disagree with me but are prepared to defend their position with reason and logic. If you're the type of person who can't participate in a discussion, who brings insults to an argument based on reason, who is so partisan that you're more interested in silencing dissent than in engagement on a topic. I would like you to unsubscribe from my channel. Just don't watch them. I think you're the problem. You're not here to have a discussion. You're here to have your views confirmed and to shout down anyone who thinks differently. If that's you, goodbye. If it's not, thanks for watching.